I was very curious, what did it look like up in the mountains? So I had to book the White Pass Rail. It starts at sea level in Skagway, Alaska, then it travels through northern British Columbia and then up into the Yukon Territory. You'll be traveling back in time aboard parlor cars. Some of them are vintage and some of them are replicas. All of them have large viewing windows. You can also go out the back door where there's a viewing platform. Princess had their own carts, and there were 3 or 4 other ships in port that day. I'm guessing that each cruise line probably had their own respective carts. I don't normally book my excursions with the cruise lines directly, but I did this time. It was my first trip to Alaska, and I wanted to make sure I did things right. Furthermore, I was traveling solo, so I wanted to be safe, and with a group of people that were all from my cruise ship. I was cruising to Alaska on Princess Cruises, in particular the Crown Princess. Normally, when you book an excursion with a cruise line, you generally meet on board in a central area like the theater or a certain lounge. In this case, the instructions were to meet on shore at the end of the pier, so that's what I did. Someone directed me to the tour bus that was waiting for us. So the journey begins when you hop aboard a Gold Rush era narrow gauge railroad cart. Along the way, you're going to see gorgeous forests, waterfalls, mountains. You'll even see remote communities such as Fraser, BC. Service runs seasonally, usually from late April until the end of September. It was built during the gold rush from 1989 to 1900, and it took over 35,000 workers. 35 people did die in the process. It's an isolated train system, so that means it's not connected to any other rail. This tour really takes you back in time. You learn a lot about the gold rush era. As we move into higher elevations, you can really see that there's a change in the vegetation. You could see the trees are getting a lot smaller. I kept seeing red snow, so if anybody knows what the red snow is all about, please leave a comment below. This part's important. This is where you want to sit. If you go on the train, when you get on the train and you're departing from Skagway and heading northbound, you want to sit on the left-hand side if you're facing forward. The left-hand side has consistently the best views. If you're towards the back of the train cart, there was a stove there. There's a back door there, and people were coming and going because that's where the viewing platform is. There's also washrooms, and they were clean. If you look at the pictures of the seating arrangements, you're going to notice that there's tables in front of all the benches. The tour that we were on was served lunch on the train. Make sure you bring your passport. You're going to need this because you're leaving the USA and entering Canada at one point. That point is in Fraser, BC. After you cross into Fraser, BC, you keep going, and then you reach the Chilkoot Trail. At the Chilkoot Trail, you could go out for a hike. What I didn't realize was this area is only accessible if you hike there or if you get there by the railway. You're not going to be there very long, maybe 15-20 minutes. There's also a museum there, but you really don't have enough time to see the museum and go on the hike, so pick and choose what you'd like to do. There are washrooms there, and they were clean. So what I'm thinking is the hike in itself is a bit of a museum. There are things left behind from the gold rush days. You're not allowed to touch anything because it's a very historical area. The other neat thing about being here is this area is so remote and it is so beautiful. I was curious whether Lake Bennett covered British Columbia or the Yukon Territory. Turns out it covers both geographically. We did cross the border into the Yukon at one point. Halfway through our journey, we stopped in Carcross, and that's where we switched over to the bus. We had about 20 minutes or so to relax there and grab a drink. If you want to do the all-day train tour, it's probably 8.5 hours. There are 2 tours available. One goes straight to Carcross, the other one stops at Lake Bennett. That's the one I did. At Lake Bennett, you get out and you get to walk around and do a little hike at the Chilkoot Trail. I would have liked to have a little bit more time in Carcross, but reflecting back, I'm glad I got to get out at the Chilkoot Trail. The next option is, do you want to take the train back or do you want to go back by bus? The bus route is similar to the train route, it's just obviously by road instead of by rail. Now, we did get to see a little bit of extra scenery on the bus that I didn't see on the train. Let's talk about the meal. They'll give you a sandwich, a bottle of water, some really good cheese. I think it was like a white cheddar cheese or something like that. Some grapes, a bag of chips, and a little dessert bar. Would I suggest you take the White Pass Rail? Absolutely. It was really cool. The views are unbelievable. It's really easy to get there from the cruise ship. You can walk to the train depot. It's no problem. It's just a couple blocks. If you want to book through the cruise line, go for it. There was lots of room and everybody had a seat and we weren't all squished in. From what I read online, there's at least one other supplier that you can book through. I believe they have their own train cart and it's at the very end. This is one of those situations where I recommend you book your ticket in advance. You probably want to do that as early as possible if you really want to go. There's going to be a limited amount of seats. Also, if you book direct with the cruise line, then you know if for some reason your ship misses the port, the cruise line will refund you your money. If you book through a third party, I would find out what their cancellation policy is if your ship doesn't make it to port in time. The other thing is, what happens if the bus breaks down on the way back? Does that tour company guarantee that they're going to get you to the ship in time? In July 2024, there was a massive rock slide that closed down the Klondike Highway. Because of this, the passengers that were on the train had to get rerouted from Skagway to Haines, Alaska, and they did not get back on the ship until the wee hours of the morning. That's one situation where you would have wished that you booked your excursion with the ship. Here's a fun fact. According to Alaska.org, the White Pass Rail and Yukon route has been designated as an International Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. This puts it in the good company of other landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty, and the Panama Canal. Here's a funny thing. If you're on the pier, the train carts are closer than the tour bus waiting for you. The train station is nice and close though. At the end of the tour, they leave you at the train station. You can walk back to the ship no problem. Now, when you finish your journey and you're at the train station, you have a choice. You could head back to the ship or you can walk into town. Don't forget to subscribe to Cruisin' Jules.